At 9 years old, I already knew how to cook dinner, calm a baby, and endure screaming without crying. I was the eldest daughter, which meant I was responsible. My childhood was stolen by those who were supposed to protect me. But the real question is not how I survived. It's how I found the strength to never pass this pain on to anyone else. I was 9 when I first realized that there were rules in our family that no one ever said out loud, but everyone knew. First, boys are more important. Second, mom is always right. And third, I exist to be convenient. There wasn't one moment that changed everything. There was no trauma in the classic sense like in the movies. I just woke up one morning, late for school, and saw my 3-year-old brother had peed on the floor. My mom was sitting on the couch with her phone and didn't even turn around. "Sophia, clean it up," she said, without even looking up. It wasn't a request. It wasn't an order. It was a fact. Like, the sky is blue. I cleaned it up. Then I fed my brother, looked for his socks, and packed his backpack for kindergarten. And then, for the first time, I thought, who packs my things? I didn't know that wasn't normal. After school, I didn't play outside. I wasn't allowed to go to my friends' houses. "There's too much to do at home," my mother would say. I washed the floors, ironed her blouses, fed my younger brother, cleaned up after my middle brother. When I tried to say that I wanted to rest, I hit a wall. "You should be thanking me," she would yell. "Who else will give you a home, food, and an education?" I learned to keep quiet. I learned to read my mother's face before she even opened her mouth. If she was in a good mood, it was best to hide. If she was not in a good mood, stay away. And be sure to make tea. Otherwise, there would be a tantrum. She didn't hit me physically. Only sometimes she would pull my hair or push me with her shoulder when she walked past. But I was afraid of her like a deity who punishes you for breathing. Once I asked why I had to do all this. Why I was like a servant and they were like my children. My mother left the room and returned a minute later with a wet rag, which she threw in my face. "Because you're a girl. Because you have to help. Because life is harder for boys," she hissed. "And you have the nerve to talk back to me?" I stood there wet, with tears on my cheeks and the salty taste of the rag on my lips. And I thought, fine. I won't ask anymore. Since then, I stopped asking. And I stopped waiting. I was quiet at school. I studied well because I was afraid of my mother's eyes when I brought home AB. I wasn't invited to birthday parties because I could never go. I had no friends. No one wanted to be friends with someone who always said no. I looked strange. Closed off. Smart, but dishonest. That's what the teachers said. But I just wasn't allowed to be a child. One day, Aunt Joanna came to visit us. She was my mother's cousin. She came once a year, like a swallow that accidentally flies into a stranger's house. She was always different. Her gaze was soft. Her voice was even. And she looked at me as if she saw a person, not a function. "Sophia, how are you?" she asked one evening when we were alone in the kitchen. I started crying. Suddenly, without warning. Small, barely audible tears. Joanna hugged me. And then she said something that I didn't understand at the time, but it stayed with me forever. "You don't have to carry all this. You have the right to live your own life." I was 10. I didn't know what that meant. But those words were like a key. And even though I couldn't use it then, I kept it inside me. Until the time came. I learned to be silent before I learned to speak about myself. In our home, silence was not peace but a tool of control. When my mother was silent, it was worse than screaming. Silence meant you had done something wrong. And you had to figure out what. When I was 13, she stopped talking to me for a whole week because I didn't guess which yogurt to buy her. Another time it was because I looked at her wrong during dinner. The third time it was because I didn't make mint tea even though she didn't ask for it. These silent prisons became routine. I began to predict her mood by the way she walked. By the way she opened the closet. By the way she sighed. No child should be such a skilled psychologist at 13. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. and made breakfast for the whole family. Then I got my brother dressed and braided his hair because my mom said she couldn't be bothered. After school, I mopped the floors, made lunch, did the laundry, and checked my little brother's homework. And the whole time my mom would say, "I'm doing everything myself." She said this with a cigarette in one hand, her phone in the other, and her feet up on the table. At first, I thought that if I did more, she would change. I washed the windows, even though no one asked me to. I cooked special meals for her birthday. I even cleaned when I had a fever. But there was no gratitude. Just fine or not right or why did you even bother? At school, my teachers started to notice me. They praised my writing and gave me high marks. But at home, it didn't matter. Grades won't feed you, my mom said. And stop bragging. You should be ashamed of yourself. I didn't brag. I just brought home a certificate from the academic competition. And I put it on the fridge. A few days later it was gone. I found it in the trash. I learned not to be happy. Because every joy is a risk of being humiliated. Once I was invited to a classmate's birthday party. I silently hid the invitation in my pocket. I didn't dare tell my mom for a long time. Finally, I cautiously asked, "Can I go to a birthday party on Sunday?" My mom didn't even look up from her phone. "Sunday is cleaning day. I'll do everything on Saturday," I said quietly. She turned her head and glanced at me appraisingly. "Who's going to cook dinner? Who's going to take your brother to his club? Do you think everything will do itself?" And again the same thing. "You're selfish, Sophie. You only think about yourself." That was the day I first thought, maybe she's right? Maybe wanting something for the holidays is selfish? At 14, I got a job cleaning an office after school. I went there myself and filled out the application. The pay was meager, but it was mine. I bought myself a pen. An expensive one. Blue with a metal body. It cost a third of my salary, but I kept it like a trophy. The next day, my mother took all my money. "It's for the utilities," she said. "You live at home anyway." She didn't say anything about the pen. But I noticed that it was missing from my pencil case. A week later, I saw it in my mother's bag. But there were other moments. Small ones. Quiet ones. Once on the subway, I saw a woman hug her daughter. They just sat there holding hands. And for some reason, I almost cried. Because I realized that I had never felt like a child around my mother. Only a worker. A servant. A shadow. I was 15 when I learned the main rule. I must not be a burden to anyone. I didn't talk about being tired. I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask for affection. I stopped waiting. I was quiet, obedient, a good girl. And no one noticed that I was breaking. I was 16 when a single sentence popped into my head and wouldn't leave me alone. What if there's something wrong with me? It happened in the school cafeteria during another break after a night shift at Applebee's. I sat over a plastic tray with half-eaten bacon and watched the girls in my class laugh at someone's stories and make plans for the weekend. They had tops, false eyelashes, and freedom. All I had was a schedule, a night shift, and a route home across a pedestrian bridge. That was when I first felt that I wasn't just tired. I was a prisoner. That same week, a boy from my class, Noah, invited me to a picnic. A group was getting together, Lake Haven, chips, music, a blanket on the grass. I was surprised he asked me. I was always quiet with tired eyes, wearing an old t-shirt with a Waffle House logo. "Come," he said. "It'll be fun." I didn't know how to say yes. But I did. And for several days I walked around as if I had sunshine inside me. I made up my mind. I waited for the evening. And at dinner I said to my mom, "Mom, on Saturday after school I want to go on a picnic with my friends." She didn't even look up from her phone. "Who will stay with Jaden and Lucas? Do you think I have the day off to run after them?" I tried to explain. I said I would prepare everything in advance. That the boys were older now. That I would be back by evening. She put down her phone. She looked at me with a long, indifferent gaze. "And you tell me you're tired? That's funny. Girl, you don't even know what tired is. You need to grow up a little instead of running around picnics. And don't you dare think that anyone is interested in you." I went to my room. I changed into my pajamas. I washed the floor while listening to my brothers play Minecraft and my mom laugh loudly at TikTok videos. But after that, something changed. My literature teacher, Mrs. Henderson, started giving me extra books. We stayed after class to discuss To Kill a Mockingbird, Fahrenheit 451, and The Handmaid's Tale. "You're not just smart, Sophie," she said one day. "You're deep. You see things that other people don't. And you can get out of here." I believe it. I didn't know what to say. I had never been seen. I wasn't strong or deep. I was just convenient. But her words gave me permission to dream for the first time. Without my mother's knowledge, I entered a state essay contest. The topic was, "What does it mean to be free?" I wrote without stopping to breathe. About the women in my neighborhood who dissolved into motherhood, silence, and fear. About how girls are taught to be quiet but not to listen to themselves. I won second place. No money but a voucher to attend 3 colleges without having to take entrance exams. I brought the letter home. I put it on the table. My mother looked at it, sighed, and said, "Tell me they're waiting for you with open arms. There are a million like you there. Everyone wants their own life. Who's going to wash the dishes?" I silently took the letter and hid it back in my backpack. That night I had my first panic attack. I woke up gasping for air. I thought I was dying. I sat down on the floor next to the stove and hugged myself. I whispered, "You're not broken. You're just trapped." It wasn't despair. It was awakening. Senior year is like the home stretch, only instead of the finish line, I was preparing to run away. I still got up at 6 a.m., made breakfast, checked Lucas's backpack, found clean sneakers for Jaden, and ironed my mom's blouse. After school I worked at a cafe. On weekends I cleaned the house. Sometimes I tutored English if I could squeeze in an hour between everything else. My mom thought it was normal. She didn't thank me or ask how I was doing. She just said, "You're doing what you have to do. That's life." But I already knew. That was not life. I started lying. A little. Carefully. With pleasure. I have extra classes. I would say when I stayed after school to fill out FAFSA forms and look for colleges with scholarships for low-income students. I had to stay late at work. I would say when I met with my admissions counselor. I saved up. Coins. Dollars. Torn bills that I put in an old cookie box. I hid it under a board in the closet. I had only one goal. To save enough for the first month of rent for a dorm room. I stopped talking about my plans. I already knew that if you want to break free, don't share your dreams with those who despise them. During spring break, my mother went away again to relax. That is, to her new boyfriend in Chicago. She left me with my brothers and a refrigerator that was almost empty. I counted the money from my last paycheck. I paid the internet bill, bought the boys some cereal and milk, and the cheapest soup for myself. When she came back, she didn't even ask how we were doing. She just said, "It's good that you finally learned. You're such a child." One evening I couldn't take it anymore. It was when my mother threw a plate on the floor again, not with force, no, just with indifference. Because she forgot to add lemon to her tea. I silently picked up the pieces and washed the floor. But something broke inside me. That night I wrote myself a letter. It began, "When you read this, you no longer live here. You got out. You are alive. And you are not to blame." I put it in a box with my money. It was a vow. I would either get out or rot in that house. My teacher, Mrs. Henderson, helped me fill out an application for a federal Pell Grant. We applied to the University of Oregon, Boise State, and a couple of local community colleges. She even brought me an old laptop, her own, and said, "No one deserves to be trapped just because they don't have the technology." I cried that night. Not because of the pain, because someone genuinely wanted me to succeed. But my mom was feeling the changes too. She started checking my phone, looking in my backpack, asking questions. "Why are you so late? Why are you so happy?" One evening was particularly tense. "You're up to something," she said, looking me straight in the eye. I just shrugged. "I'm just trying to study hard." She came closer. "Don't think you're better than the rest of us. And remember, no one is waiting for you anywhere. People laugh at people like you." And she left. I stood there leaning against the sink. But this time I wasn't scared. This time I thought, maybe they're not waiting. But I'm going anyway. It was a normal day, sunshine, mailbox, sweaty hands after a shift at the cafe. I held the envelope from Boise State University like a bomb. It was large, thick, and didn't look like a rejection letter. I stood by the front door while Lucas played in the sand, and opened it carefully, as if with a scalpel. "Dear Sophia, congratulations. We are thrilled to welcome you." The rest was blurry. The words lost their shape. I just sat on the steps, staring at the paper, unable to believe it. I had been accepted. And not just accepted, with a full scholarship. I didn't scream. I didn't jump up and down. I didn't post on Instagram. I clutched the letter and hid it in my jacket. Because joy is dangerous. That night I couldn't sleep. Only one thought was spinning in my head. I'm going. I'm really going. I imagined my life in a dormitory. A lamp on the desk. A bed with yellow pillows. My roommate asking, "Do you want Chinese or pizza tonight?" I imagined myself alive. The next day, I got up at 5 to make breakfast before my mom woke up. But she was already in the kitchen. She was standing next to my backpack. And she was holding that letter. She was looking at it as if it were an insult. A personal one. "What the hell is this?" she said quietly. I froze. My throat tightened. It's... I got into college, I whispered. Did you ask me? She held the letter like proof of betrayal. There was no anger in her eyes. Only coldness. Calculation. You want to give up everything? Leave your family? Go live like some kind of... She didn't finish, clenching her teeth. And who will take care of your brothers? Who will help them? I took a step toward her, reaching out to take the letter. She backed away. I won't let you do this. And then I realized she really believed she had a right to my life. The next few days were a war. My mother didn't speak to me for days, then suddenly exploded. Who's pulling you there? Do you think they're waiting for you with open arms? All those kids are from normal families. What about you? From Waffle House? You're going to ruin your life. And don't think you can come back when it all falls apart. I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I couldn't afford to lose control. I worked. I packed my things in secret. I bought a travel bag with cash. I cleaned like never before so as not to give her any reason. And every night when she fell asleep, I pulled the letter from under my pillow and reread it. Welcome to the class of 20XX. One evening she said, if you go, forget you have a mother. I was sitting with her in the kitchen, drinking tea. There was a sticky silence in the air. You won't have anywhere to come back to, she added. And I nodded. I don't plan to. I woke up before my alarm went off. It was 4:47 a.m. My heart was beating so hard that I thought I was going to break down right there and then. I sat in the dark room, listening to my younger brother Lucas breathing, and thought, this is my last morning here. Really the last. My travel bag stood in the corner, filled to the brim. Everything I owned was in it. My laptop, a few changes of clothes, a cheap thermos, an old book from Mrs. Henderson, a flash drive with my documents. I got dressed in silence. Sweatpants, a sweatshirt. Nothing that would betray the solemnity of the moment. This wasn't an escape from a movie. It was like pulling myself out of my own skin. I left the letter on the kitchen table. Printed out. Emotionless. Mom, I've gone away to study. It's my decision. Don't be angry with me. Just let me go. I didn't expect her to read it. But I had to say it. At least once honestly. I left the house so quietly as if I were running away. But I wasn't running away. I was leaving. It was dark and damp at the bus stop. The bus to Boise left at 6:10. I stood there with my ticket in my hand, silent. My hands were shaking. I didn't check my phone. I knew what I would find there. Messages. Threats. Tears. Maybe even the police if they decided to report me missing. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was scared, yes. But it was a new kind of fear. The fear of adulthood, not punishment. The bus arrived. The driver was a man in his 60s with a cup of coffee in his hands and a name tag that said Rick. He looked at me with a smile. Are you going to Boise with us? Yes. Is this your first time? I nodded. He winked. It's the best decision you'll make this year. I almost cried right there. But I held it back. When we pulled away, I took out my phone. 3 missed calls. 1 from my mom. 2 from Aunt Samantha, obviously already caught up in the drama. Messages. You ruined everything. You hurt me. Don't come back. And another one. If anything happens, it's on your conscience. I deleted them all. Then I opened a new window and wrote a single message to Mrs. Henderson. I'm on the bus. Thank you. I did it. She replied. I'm proud of you. Let me know when you arrive. My husband and I have arranged a place for you to stay for the first few days while you find a dorm. I cried again. This time it was tears of relief. The bus sped down the highway, the sky brightening. I looked out the window, and for the first time in my life, I didn't think I was doing something bad. I thought, I'm alive. I'm breathing. And I'm on my way to myself. Boise greeted me with nothing. Gray cool, no loud welcome. Just a bus stop, a wet sidewalk, and a cheap coffee stand where the coffee smelled like an old filter. I got off the bus with only one bag. Rick nodded goodbye. I didn't even know where to go, just an address on my phone. Temporary housing that Mrs. Henderson had found for me. Her husband knew a woman who rented rooms in her house to female students. Inexpensive. No deposit. I called. The voice on the other end of the line was warm. Hi, Sophie. We've been waiting for you. Come in, I've put out towels. So simple. No shouting. No checks. No, you owe me. The house was small and cozy, smelling of cinnamon. Mrs. Mary the landlady was short, with wrinkles around her eyes that didn't hide her smile. She showed me the room, a bed, a lamp, a wardrobe, a small window. "The first few weeks will be the hardest," she said. "But you'll manage. You have the face for it." I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded. And for the first time in a long time, I believed I could do it. The first few days were strange. No one gave me orders. No one asked why I was drinking tea at 9 p.m. I could sleep as long as I wanted. I could leave when I wanted to. I could come back without explaining myself. But with freedom came a paradox. I didn't know what to do with it. I woke up at night feeling like I had forgotten to clean up. Like someone was waiting for dinner. Like I was about to be called and told, "Come back." I made breakfast and caught myself waiting for a grade. But there was no grade. And the silence was terrifying. Not because there was evil in it, but because in it, no one needed me and I wasn't needed as a convenience. I was just myself. And I didn't know who that was. Classes started a week later. I bought myself a new notebook and pen. For the first time, I paid for them with my own money without asking permission or hiding the receipt. I remember my first day on campus. I was standing among a crowd of students, all with headphones, coffee, and laptops. And I felt so small. But I went to my first class. Then to my second. By the end of the week, I knew the names of my classmates. One girl who sat next to me was called Lauren. She had colorful bracelets and always wore a hoodie with the words "Choose Joy" written on it. "Are you new?" she asked. "Yes. Sophia. I like your name. It sounds like you know how to think." I smiled. It was the first sentence in many years that wasn't demanding. Just an observation. Just warmth. That evening I sat in my room with the lamp on, drinking tea and writing in my journal. I'm 18. I don't know what my favorite song is. I don't know what I like to eat. I don't know who I am when I'm not afraid. But I want to find out. My first month at college flew by in a blur. Classes, part-time jobs, constant bills in my head. How much money do I have left? Will it be enough for transportation? How can I survive another 2 weeks on pasta and canned tuna? I worked at a campus cafe 3 times a week, coffee machine, cleaning tables, endless next. But I was grateful for the job. It was my lifeline. And yet, I often came back to my room in the evening, kicked off my sneakers, and just sat there. No sound. No words. Because I didn't know how to be. I always knew what to do. But I never knew who I was. One day after work, I was late for my introductory psychology class. I rushed into the lecture hall, stirred up the air, and collapsed into my seat. A guy was sitting next to me. Baseball cap on backwards, blanket instead of a jacket, a thermos cup with the words "Real men drink tea" written on it. He smiled. "Do you always make such a dramatic entrance?" I glanced at him, embarrassed. "Sorry. I just got out of work." "Yeah. Me too. Straight from the library." "It's hell," and he pretended to fall onto the desk. I laughed. For the first time in a week. "I'm Lucas," he said, holding out his hand. "Sophia. That's a beautiful name. It sounds wise. I've heard that before." "Well, I'm the second one. So it must be true." We started seeing each other more often. We would sit together after lectures. We would study for tests in the library. Then one day we went for coffee. Another time we just walked around campus. With him, it was peaceful. No competition, no fear. He didn't ask me, "What are you going to give me in return?" He just listened. Once, when I accidentally mentioned that I didn't like noisy places because I was always afraid that someone would bump into me or judge me, he replied, "Me too. I grew up in a house where every word could cause an explosion." And then for the first time, I felt that I wasn't alone in this trauma. He was simple. No pretensions. He didn't wear designer clothes or show off his test scores. But he always opened the door, always looked me in the eyes, and always asked, "Did you eat today?" It was the kindest question I had ever heard in my life. I didn't rush into relationships. I was afraid. But step by step, conversation by conversation, his presence became a place where I could be imperfect. One day, after a hard day, I couldn't take it anymore. I started crying in the middle of campus. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just hugged me. "You don't have to be strong every day," he whispered. And I broke down in his arms. For the first time without shame. When Lucas asked me to officially be a couple, we were sitting on a bench near campus, eating ice cream and laughing at some silly advertisement on a billboard. "I know it's not Hollywood," he said, wiping ice cream off his chin. "But will you be my girlfriend?" I laughed. You just asked me out with vanilla sauce on your face. It was a strategy, he winked. No one says no to a person with ice cream. Well then, I'll say yes. And we laughed even harder. It was easy. Effortless. Like two young people who believed that everything was just beginning. Life became a little softer. Lucas often brought me coffee to the library. We cooked simple meals together in his small kitchen, macaroni and cheese, avocado sandwiches. On weekends, we watched movies lying on an old mattress, wrapped in a blanket like a cocoon. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real warmth. And I began to believe that it was mine. And then the first call. I was coming back from a lecture when my phone rang. The screen said, "Mom." I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. My heart sank. I didn't answer. I just stared. The second call came the next day. And another one a week later. Then a message. You could at least have written, "I'm your mother. I'm here alone with the boys. You've probably forgotten who raised you. I hope you're happy." I didn't answer. But something stirred inside me. I felt guilty. Even though I wasn't. I told Lucas about the calls only a week later. We were sitting in his room and he was twirling a pen between his fingers. I began. My mom started writing again. He stopped. He looked at me seriously. And how do you feel? Like I'm running away. Like I'm a traitor. He was silent. Then he said, "You're not running away. You're saving yourself. And that's not the same thing." I didn't answer. But his words stayed with me like a stone in deep water. Invisible but important. The next time my mother called, it was 2 a.m. I woke up, drenched in sweat, and mechanically picked up the phone. "Sophie? Is that you?" Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. "I don't know what I did, but you're punishing me." "I'm not punishing you," I whispered. "I'm just living." "And what am I? Dead?" Pause. "I just want to talk. I'm sick. My blood pressure is high. And I'm having a hard time. The boys are wild. No one helps me." I was silent. "Are you coming home anytime soon?" she added. And I said the hardest thing. "I don't know." I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to Lucas, listening to him breathe in his sleep, and thought, how can you be happy when the shadow of the person you left behind lives inside you? And then another thought. Maybe I didn't leave her. Maybe I finally found myself. Lucas and I moved into a small apartment near campus. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a carpet with coffee stains. But it was ours. We even bought a cheap rug on Amazon with the words, "Home is where your socks match," as a symbol that it didn't have to be perfect. Just honest. I worked part-time at the campus library. Lucas worked in the campus tech department. We lived modestly. But there was no fear. There was no voice saying you're worthless. And when I saw the 2 lines on the test, I wasn't scared. I smiled. Lucas held the test in his hands as if it were a letter from Hogwarts. "Are you serious? We're going to be parents." I nodded, tears in my eyes. And for the first time in my life I heard, "We'll manage. Together." It wasn't, "It's your fault." It wasn't, "What have you done?" It was we. We started making plans. Nothing grand. Just simple things like how to get health insurance, how to find a gynecologist, what foods would help with nausea. We slept in each other's arms even when it was hot. We talked about names. He joked that he wanted to name our daughter after a character from a comic book. I told him not to ruin the child's life. It wasn't like in the movies. It was better. Because it was ours. I didn't tell my mom for a long time. But by the 5th month, my belly was too big to hide. And then I gathered my courage. I called her. After a few rings, I heard her voice. "Yes. Mom. I'm pregnant." Pause. Silence. I heard her exhale cigarette smoke. "And now what? Where are you? Who are you with? What are you thinking?" "I'm with Lucas. We're together. Everything is fine. But you're just a child yourself. How can everything be fine? You've ruined your life." I swallowed my tears. I was shaking. But I held on. "I'm going to be a mom. And I want you to know that. Just so you know." She laughed. Hollow. Contemptuous. "Well, congratulations. Now you're just like me. We'll see how you sing when you're up all night. When your husband leaves you with a baby and bills to pay." I pressed in call. A few days later, she wrote, "I want to come. To help. I'm a grandmother after all. You won't keep me away, will you? I'm a mother too. I know better. You'll thank me when you realize how hard it is to be a mom." And something inside me tightened again. Because I knew, this wasn't help. This was an invasion. Lucas saw my face when I was reading the message. What's wrong? She wants to come. And, I don't know what to say. I don't want to see her. But she's my mother. He came over and took my hands. Sophie, be honest. Do you want her here? I was silent. Honestly, not as a good daughter. As a woman expecting a child. I replied quietly. No. He nodded. Then you don't have to. You have the right to say no. Even to your mother. But she didn't accept my no. She called Mrs. Mary, the woman I used to live with. She asked for my address. She said her daughter was lost and that the child might be in danger. Mrs. Mary called me and asked, "Is everything okay? Because your mother says you need to be rescued." I cried into the phone. And she said quietly, "Sophie, no one has the right to ruin your life in the name of love. You don't have to let her back in." Emma was born early in the morning on one of those days when the sky is milky and it seems like everything has stopped for a moment. The birth was difficult. The pain was excruciating. But when I heard her cry and felt her tiny body on my chest, I cried like I had never cried before. "Hello, little one," I whispered. "I've been waiting for you my whole life." Lucas was there. He was holding my hand, pale, but he didn't move an inch. "You're a hero," he said. "You're a miracle." I looked at him, disheveled, unshaven, his eyes full of tears, and I knew that I was finally home. We spent our first night together in the hospital room. Emma slept curled up in a tiny blanket and I lay on my side, holding Lucas's hand. "How are you?" he whispered. "Scared. But okay. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We'll do this together." "Okay." I nodded. His words were like a quiet prayer. I believed him. The next morning I got a message from my mom. "I heard you gave birth. I'm on my way." "No, congratulations." "No, how are you?" "Just control." I didn't reply. But my heart was beating like an alarm bell. 2 days later, she was at the hospital. She showed up unannounced. At the door of my room. With red lipstick, wearing a coat that was too bright. As always, making a scene. "So, how's it feel to be a mom?" she snapped. "Now you'll understand what I went through. You won't be able to do it without me. Believe me." I hugged Emma tighter. She was asleep. "Mom, I didn't ask you to come," I said quietly. She smiled dryly. "You'll thank me later. I'm staying with you to help. And you'll finally learn how to do everything right." Lucas got up from his chair and came between us. "I'm sorry, but Sophie needs peace and quiet right now. And if you don't respect her decision, you'd better leave." She turned to him as if she were seeing him for the first time. "Who are you to tell me what to do? Do you even have a job? Or are you just sponging off her?" I shuddered. It hurt to see her humiliate the person who was my rock. But Lucas didn't respond with insults. He stood firm, quiet but clear. "I'm the one who loves her. And I won't let anyone break her again under the guise of caring." She left the room, saying, "You'll come crawling back. You'll see that I was right." I closed my eyes. "It's okay," Lucas whispered, hugging me. "You're not alone." That night, I couldn't sleep for a long time. I held Emma to my chest, feeling her warmth and breathing. And I thought, I won't let her grow up in fear. I won't let my story repeat itself. And when Lucas snuggled up to me from the other side, I knew we are a family. And we are different now. The first months with Emma were like a wet dream. Warm, sleepless, painful, and beautiful. I cried when she cried. I fell asleep sitting up with her head on my chest. I learned to feed her, clean her, calm her down. Everything was new. Everything was mine. Lucas was there from day one. He changed diapers better than I did. He cooked. He held my back when I couldn't stand up after feeding. "I didn't imagine it would be this hard," he said, holding Emma when she wouldn't sleep. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything. We were a family. Inexperienced. But real." My mom started writing a lot when Emma was 2 weeks old. "How's she?" "You need help." "I'll come, don't be silly. You're kids. You have no money, no experience. What if you can't handle it? Let me have her for a few weeks. I'll teach you how to put her to sleep. You don't know how to do it." I didn't answer. But the tension was building. I knew she wouldn't stop. One day the doorbell rang. 2 people, a woman with a tablet and a man with a Child Protective Services badge. "We need to talk," she said. "This is a routine check after a report from a relative. It has been reported that you do not have adequate conditions for a baby." I felt the ground slip away beneath my feet. Someone reported that there is no food in the apartment, that you don't sleep at night, that the child cries constantly, and that the mother is in an unstable emotional state. I was confused. I'm tired. But we take care of her. She's healthy. We have everything we need. Lucas came over holding Emma. His face was calm and clear. Everything is fine. We both take care of the baby. We have a pediatrician, health insurance, baby clothes. Everything can be checked. They took notes. They asked questions. They left their business card. If the complaints continue, we have to come back. After that, I received a message. I know what I'm doing. They'll make you think twice before shutting your mother out. I'm saving you. Even if you don't understand it. And then, for the first time, I felt real anger. It wasn't concern. It was an attack. She wanted to scare me. To make me weaker. So that I would let her back into my life. And now into my child's life. I told Lucas, she wants to break us. She won't forgive me for getting away. For being alive. He hugged me, took Emma carefully, and held her close to his chest. We won't let her. We're together. If we have to, we'll find a lawyer. We'll document everything. And we won't let her take you back to where they destroyed you. During those days, Joanna wrote to me, your mother called me. She said you were in crisis. I don't believe her. I'll come if you say the word. I wrote come. And for the first time in a long time I breathed. Because I knew, now I wasn't alone. Joanna arrived a week after the social services were notified. She came with 2 suitcases, a knitted scarf, and a thermos of coffee. When I opened the door, she just hugged me. For a long time. Without words. The way only family can hug. I saw you back then. A little girl in the kitchen turning on the water so her mom wouldn't hear her crying. I knew you were special. But today I'm proud. I started crying again. And for the first time, those tears weren't about pain. They were about someone seeing the real me. We gathered all the evidence, screenshots of her messages, a list of calls, phone records, a report from social services, and letters from acquaintances who knew my story. Joanna even brought old letters from my childhood, where my mother demanded that I come back, fulfill my duties, and not shame the family. We sat down with the lawyer, Miss Gray. She was short, about 45 years old, wearing a strict suit and with a piercing gaze. You want to restrict your mother's access to you and your child. Is that correct? Yes, I replied. Completely. No, from time to time. No exceptions. This won't be easy for you. She is your mother. Courts often question the refusal of relatives, especially grandmothers. But she's dangerous. Not physically, I added. Emotionally. She's destructive, manipulative, and stalkerish. She wants to control my daughter the way she used to control me. Miss Gray looked me in the eyes. Okay. Then we'll do this right. We spent the next few weeks preparing. Joanna was my rock. She took Emma out, made soup, and supported Lucas when he was more nervous than I was. I'm not used to having to protect people from their own parents, he said. But I'll do everything I can to make sure she never hurts you or Emma again. And I believed him. Because his love wasn't loud, it was concrete. He washed the floors while I fell asleep. He held my hand in the courtroom hallways. He said, if you need me to testify, I will. I saw how he acted. And I won't let that be forgotten. When the day of the first hearing arrived, I was shaking. She sat in the courtroom like an actress. In a strict suit, with a pained expression on her face. When the judge asked her why she had come to the authorities, she replied, I'm just worried. They're children. I've seen how nervous my daughter is. She's unstable. I just want my granddaughter to be safe. And this safety is without her mother? Asked Ms. Gray. My mother looked away. I didn't say that. But we have to act before it's too late. I don't want a tragedy to happen. My chest tightened. She really was talking about me as if I were dangerous. She really wanted to take my child away from me. I stood up and looked the judge straight in the eye. I grew up under her control. I didn't know what unconditional love was. I was told that I existed to serve. That I had to be grateful for every piece of bread. I don't want my child to grow up like that. I don't want her heart to be broken like mine was. The judge listened silently. Finally, he said, we will continue the hearing. But I can already see that this case is not about a worried grandmother. It's about boundaries that have been violated for years. We will take that into account. After the hearing, my mother said to me, you'll regret this. I didn't flinch. I just replied, I'm not the same person who lived in the kitchen. I'm a mother. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. The court hearing lasted almost 3 months. Those were weeks of anxiety, gathering evidence, interrogations, clarifications. My mother hired her own lawyer, and the game of the caring grandmother who was unjustly expelled began. She cried in the courtroom. She said that her only dream was to see her granddaughter grow up. That I was emotionally unstable due to exhaustion. That Lucas was barely a child, unable to provide for himself or his child. Her lawyer read from a piece of paper. Family is the most important thing. Your Honor, in this case, the ties between generations must be preserved. But I kept my gaze steady. I didn't look down anymore. Miss Gray acted calmly and professionally. She presented everything: Joanna's testimony, information from social services, my statements, photos from our home, Emma's schedule, and doctor's notes. Sophia is not just a mother, she said. She is a woman who has escaped years of psychological abuse. And she is not to blame that her defense now looks like cruelty in some people's eyes. But she's her mother. My mother couldn't hold back, standing up. Exactly, Mrs. Gray replied calmly. And that's why it hurt so much. On the day of the verdict, we sat in the courtroom. Joanna was on the right. Lucas was on the left. I was in the middle, holding Emma in my arms. The judge announced the decision. Taking into account all the evidence presented, the testimony, and the psychological evaluation, the court finds it necessary to restrict the grandmother's access to the mother and child. No physical or telephone contact without the permission of the party who filed the petition. For 2 years, with the possibility of extension. My mother stood up, white as a sheet. She destroyed me. She killed my motherhood. The judge didn't even look up. And for the first time in many years, I didn't flinch. We left the courtroom in silence. Outside, Joanna hugged me and whispered, "You stopped the darkness. And you didn't do it for yourself. You did it for her." She nodded toward Emma. Lucas took my hand. "You are the strongest person I know." I smiled through my tears. "I'm just tired of being afraid." That night, I put Emma to bed. Her face was peaceful. Her hands were spread out, trusting. I sat by her crib and said, "I named you Emma because it means wholeness. Because you are my new story. And I promise you, you will never be a broken piece of something old." It was one of those evenings when everything was quiet. When nothing hurt. When Emma was already asleep, Lucas was washing dishes in the kitchen, and the air was filled with peace. Joanna and I were sitting on the porch. I was wrapped in a blanket, drinking chamomile tea and looking at the night sky. Joanna, as always, was silently wise. Her gaze was somewhere far away. "Have you ever wondered why she is like that?" she asked suddenly. "Your mother." I shrugged. "I have. But honestly, I don't want to know anymore. I've spent so many years trying to find logic in what she did, and I never found any. But I know," Joanna said. "And if you're ready to hear it, I'll tell you." I looked at her and nodded. "Our father, your grandfather, was a cruel man. Not just strict. Not just harsh. Cruel. Physically. Emotionally. His word was law, and he decided that one child had to be the sacrifice for discipline. Mom? Yes. She was the oldest. He punished her for everything, forced her to be silent. She washed his shirts when she was 9. Her hands were cracked, and her eyes empty. I was younger, he didn't touch me like that. And I was afraid. And I kept quiet. I pressed the blanket to my chest. My throat was dry. She never had a childhood. She was never protected. And when she became a mother, she didn't know what it meant to love. Because no one loved her. I was silent. A breeze rustled the branches. "Your mother wasn't born a monster, Sophie. She was made that way. But she decided not to fight. She just repeated what she knew. She passed it on." A tear rolled down my cheek. "But I don't want to pass it on. Not the anger. Not the fear. Not the pain. And you won't pass it on," said Joanna. "Because you've already stopped it." After our conversation, I went into Emma's room. She was asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit in her arms. Her breathing was steady and peaceful. Her life was still a blank page. I sat down by her bed and whispered, "I can't change what happened, but I can choose what happens next. And I choose love. I choose peace. I choose you." I touched her hair. "You won't be my mirror. You'll be yourself. Free. Whole. Unbroken." And when I lay down next to Lucas, when his hand rested on my waist, I finally understood. I survived. I didn't lose myself. I built a family from scratch, without pain, without manipulation. And my daughter won't pay for someone else's sins. It stops with me.